There are stories in the Bible that, upon reading, confront us with dark aspects we often wish to avoid. And the story in Judges, chapters 19 to 21, is one of them, a chilling and unsettling narrative that stands out in Old Testament history. Many may have read Judges and know of this story but have not gone through its entirety. I believe that after watching this video, you will gain new perspectives and lessons from this story. However, due to the disturbing nature of this tale, it is considered unsuitable for minors. And if you carry painful memories, please consider carefully before viewing, as it may affect your well-being. This story has led me to deep reflections on how one individual's actions impacted an entire tribe, ultimately affecting the whole nation of Israel. Indeed, the consequences of this story altered the course of an entire nation. In those days, when Israel had no king, there was a Levite living in the remote hill country of northern Ephraim. He took a concubine from the southern region of Bethlehem in Judah. However, she was unfaithful to him and eventually left, returning to her father's house in Bethlehem, Judah, where she stayed for 4 months. Wanting to reconcile, the Levite set out with his servant and 2 donkeys to bring her back. When her father saw him, he welcomed him warmly and insisted he stay for 4 days. On the 5th day, the Levite prepared to leave with his wife. As they journeyed and neared Jebus in the evening, the servant suggested they stop for the night, but the Levite refused, noting that Jebus was a city of foreigners, not Israelites. He decided they should continue on to Gibeah. When they reached the square in Gibeah, it was already dark, yet no one offered them hospitality, which was a core value of Israelite culture. Finally, an old man approached, learned of their need for shelter and provisions for the donkeys, and offered to take them into his home. While they were dining, a violent mob of men surrounded the house and demanded that the old man bring out the Levite to harm him. The host refused, but, to appease the mob, offered his daughter and the Levite's wife, telling the men they could do as they pleased with them, but to spare the Levite. He then shut the door, leaving the Levite's wife outside to face the mob alone. Throughout that dreadful night, the woman suffered terrible abuse from the men. The horror of that scene is difficult to fathom, underscoring why this content may not be suitable for young viewers and may stir painful memories for some. It's unimaginable what this woman endured, physical and emotional torment, over the course of that long, brutal night. The vile men abused her from night until dawn, finally releasing her at daybreak. Imagine her condition after enduring such brutal mistreatment through the night. She staggered, bruised and battered, to the old man's doorstep and collapsed. Meanwhile, the Levite had slept soundly. As he opened the door to continue his journey, he saw her collapsed on the threshold, her hands gripping the doorway. Coldly, he told her, "Get up." But she did not respond. She had drawn her last breath. The Levite then placed her on his donkey and resumed his journey. Upon returning home, he took a knife and divided her body into 12 pieces, sending one piece with a letter detailing what had happened to each of Israel's 12 tribes. The horror of this act shook the Israelites deeply. They could not fathom such wickedness among their own people. One tribe even exclaimed that since the Israelites had left Egypt, no atrocity like this had ever occurred. What began as an isolated tragedy now became an issue for the entire nation. In the following chapters, Judges 20 to 21, civil war erupted within Israel, with 11 tribes rising to punish Benjamin for allowing such depravity in their midst. Reflecting on the story of the Levite's wife in Judges 19, what lessons do we find? Remember, in those days, Israel had no king or leader. Individuals acted solely by their own judgment, without accountability or need for justification. They believed they could make isolated decisions without consulting others. This lack of leadership led to a land with laws, but no respect for those laws. And soon people did things they never imagined they would do. The first lesson here is that without a sense of responsibility, we are prone to stray and fall into harmful actions. The second lesson I draw from this story is that we must treat everyone equally, just as God treats us. In the story, the old man valued the Levite over his own daughter and the Levite's concubine. Remember, when the vile men surrounded the house, the old man sacrificed the safety of the Levite by offering up his own daughter and the Levite's concubine. This story reflects the societal reality of that time, where women were often undervalued and treated as tools to achieve certain ends. Once again, this reminds us of the need for gender equality and the importance of protecting women's dignity in society. The third lesson is the necessity of compassion and moral integrity. Both the Levite and the people of Gibeah displayed shocking indifference. The Levite willingly offered his concubine to the hostile mob, disregarding the immense suffering she would endure. People of Gibeah, too, initially showed no hospitality or concern for the Levite and his companion. Hospitality was a fundamental value in Israelite culture, yet the people of Gibeah neglected this tradition entirely. Imagine if they had shown kindness and offered help to the Levite and his wife. The story might have ended with far less tragedy. This story took place in a time when everyone acted as they saw fit, highlighting how easily personal morals can falter without clear guidance. When individuals act solely on personal judgment, society can quickly descend into violence and cruelty, underscoring the need for a shared moral standard within a community. Fortunately, we are here, you and I, as children of God, guided by faith each day. This brings me to the fourth lesson, which I believe is crucial. Each of us must keep God close and never stray from Him. Anyone who has read the chapters of Judges will clearly see the consequences when a nation, over time, drifts away from God and loses its way. God is the light that shines into darkened souls, guiding us to the right path. Yet even a nation chosen by God slowly turned from Him. This story serves as a wake-up call, a reminder for you and me to maintain a close bond with God in every place, at every moment, and under all circumstances. If we distance ourselves from God, eventually we may end up like Israel, doing things we once could never have imagined. Actions like divorce, infidelity, or drug use, which would have seemed impossible to us 5 or 10 years prior. The farther we are from God, the easier it becomes to fall into sin. The Levite story impacts not only the man who lost his wife or those violent men who were punished for their cruelty, but it also affects an entire tribe. Benjamin was asked to surrender the depraved men among them, but they refused, leading the other 11 tribes of Israel to unite in punishing Benjamin. If you're able, I encourage you to read chapters 20 to 21 to understand the details of this brutal civil war. In summary, it was a massive conflict, with thousands on both sides killed, and the very land of Israel stained red with blood. Afterward, only 600 men from Benjamin survived, fleeing into the wilderness to escape further pursuit, bringing the tribe to the brink of extinction. This brings me to the fifth lesson. You can choose your sin, but you cannot choose its consequences. The tribe of Benjamin paid a steep price for the sins of their people. The Levite chose revenge, dragging his fellow Israelites into a deadly conflict. The 11 tribes rose to pursue Benjamin with relentless force, only to realize the painful consequence. Could one of Israel's 12 tribes vanish forever? They came to understand that this was not just a personal loss, but a national tragedy affecting the entire people of Israel, where each tribe represented a vital part of the community chosen by God. One poor decision led to another. The Israelites devised a plan to provide 400 women from their tribes as wives for the surviving Benjamites, to preserve the tribe's lineage. However, They had sworn not to give their own daughters to the Benjamites. Unable to break this vow, they devised another plan. They announced an upcoming festival, allowing the Benjamites to take their daughters by force. This, too, was a reckless solution. Consider how many lives were negatively impacted by one terrible decision after another. Poor choices lead to more poor choices, and each one affects others. As a result of the actions of a few Benjamite men, many innocent Benjamites suffered. Husbands lost their wives, and fathers lost daughters abducted to become Benjamite wives. The consequences of sin are often unseen at first, but they are indeed dreadful. Imagine if the Levite had chosen forgiveness and reconciliation instead of revenge. Would the tragedy have reached such proportions? The Levites' revenge and the ensuing war among Israel's tribes only brought more pain and loss. This story shows that violence is not the path to justice. Instead, it is reconciliation and forgiveness that lead to lasting peace. The sixth lesson I draw from this story, and one I want to encourage you with on a positive note, is that, no matter what, God loves and never abandons His people. Even in the darkest times, God provides a path forward. Benjamin received God's grace, allowing them to take women from the festival to rebuild their tribe in their inherited land. The book of Judges ends with a sobering reminder. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. This is a powerful warning about the dangers of lacking guidance and reverence for God. When the Israelites acted on their own without divine direction, they fell into a destructive cycle of violence. The story of the tribe of Benjamin and God's grace serves as a reminder to strengthen our faith, knowing that God is always with us, guiding us on His path. Until next time, may God be with you. Please subscribe to our channel to enjoy more captivating Bible stories from us.